I think we finished this up, right? Arrogance against the messengers, or no? Okay, close. So today, inshallah, we're going to close up and try to finish out the discussion around arrogance toward people. We had talked about one of the dangers of the arrogance toward messengers is because there's a lot of entitlement, and there are a lot of questions on, well, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose this person? Or why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose this individual? How come I wasn't the one that was chose for this message? And this very much is an implied arrogance against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because now it's putting conditions on Him Azza wa Jal. And I think this is something that we can extend into a lot of the conversations that we have even around ourselves, that why didn't a certain outcome happen, or why isn't this person dealing in this particular way with me, or why isn't a person talking in that particular way with me. I'm not in a position where I can dictate that toward others. But as an individual, as a Muslim, what is the one thing that I can demand from everyone? It's my right to do this. Can I demand kindness? Well, there's one thing you can demand, and you can set very strong boundaries toward that. Respect, right? That's something that's really important. Meaning that anybody who's dealing with me, they have no right to what? Disrespect me. Now, do I have a right from them that they be kind, or that they be generous, right? Like, these are all good things. There's no doubt about it. But is it fair for me to expect that from that person? I think we want it, right? A lot of times we want people to be kind with us. A lot of times we want people to be generous. But I think everybody is different, and the only thing that we can control when we're speaking and when we're dealing with others is to make sure that they're being respectful in the way they speak with us and the way that they talk with us. And a lot of times those expectations, like they're misplaced expectations that we have with others. And a lot of times people will be like, oh, well, how are you going to get through life if you don't expect someone to be kind? How are you going to get through life if you don't expect people to be truthful? How are you going to get through life if you don't expect people to do X, Y, Z? I think when we set those expectations low, it becomes a lot easier to deal with the people in the world around us. And regardless of what those relationships look like, I think there are certain rights that we definitely can demand. In different relationships, there are different rights that we can demand. What are the basic rights that one Muslim has on another? If you can remember some of them, that's fine. Not all of them is not necessary.
How is arrogant is stubborn? The person stubborn or arrogant, are they much different?
What do you mean?
The person, one is arrogant and one is stubborn.
Stubborn, it depends on why they're stubborn, right? There are different reasons that people are stubborn. And what if somebody's stubborn upon the truth? Is that bad? If someone is like, hey, you did this. And I'm like, no, actually I didn't. I wasn't even there. Like, look, here, this is the map, this is where I was, like, these are the people who I was with. Like, I'm being stubborn, yes or no? But at the end of the day, it really depends on the type of stubbornness. Like, if I'm stubborn upon a lie, or if I'm stubborn upon an opinion, right? Like, that could be indicative of arrogance, but it's not necessary. What are the rights of one Muslim on another? I'm sure you guys know some of them. Or there are no rights. Can I give you one hint? Ahsanti, good. Right? If somebody sneezes and they say Alhamdulillah, I say Yarhamukallah. Good. What else? Salam. That I respond. If a Muslim gives me salam, I respond to their salam. What else? Right, so if they invite me out, then I go out with them. What else? Gifts is, it's not in that hadith, but yes, it's the Prophet ﷺ, he actually commands to give gifts. Oh, and he also said la turud al-hadaya, and he don't refuse gifts. Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I mean, la turud al-hadaya is like, don't turn away gifts. I think that's a general order. It doesn't mean that every single individual who comes to me with a gift, I have to accept it. Have you guys ever been to like the weddings and they have like party favors? You know what I mean? So sometimes they have like those mini Qurans. You ever seen that? And I'm like, yo, I don't want this. Like, I have no idea what to do with it. Like, it's not readable. Like, you know what I mean? So, as long as you're not being malicious in refuting a gift, sometimes people will gift you this happens more in the Eastern world than it does in the West, where someone will be like, oh, here, put on some etar, right? Or put on some perfume, and I really don't like the smell, right? Like, I don't know if you guys but it's like, no, brother, it's important for you to smell nice. It's a gift, so like I said, in general, we shouldn't be people who reject gifts like that. But individual gifts, like if it's something that I don't care for, someone might be like, okay, here's some almonds, and I'm like, yeah, I'm allergic to almonds. Like, no, I have to accept it. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't turn away gifts, right? So if I have a reason and I'm not being malicious, that's fine. Yes?
Yes, with respect to just that context, does that only apply to Muslims? I'll give you
So
an example.
we'll get there. We'll get there. If a Muslim dies, I should follow their janazah, right? This is another one. So in general, these are the rights of one Muslim on another, meaning that I have every right to expect these as a religious expectation. Now, in regards to non-Muslims, if a non-Muslim sneezes, can I say bless you? If they invite me to their home, can I go? So I want you to think about it in that way. Concerning the Muslim, this is his right. Concerning the non-Muslim, it's a choice. Right? I don't have to. Right? But with the Muslim, it's a right. With the non-Muslim, it's a choice. Can I go to a non-Muslim funeral? Maybe it was a neighbor, family member, family friend, personal friend. Yeah, you can go, just to show support to the family and things like that. Like, obviously, as a human being that passed, and there's pain that's associated with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, that's a choice. It's not a right in the sense that it's an obligation like it is with other Muslims. So these are some spiritual expectations that we can have from others. But like I said, there are certain things that we do want and we do hope from others, but that's very different than expecting them, and that a person must respond in that way. I think if I don't have those expectations, it protects me from being naive. It protects me from being taken advantage of. Right? It's really easy. If I think every single person in the world is trustworthy, what's going to happen? I don't think it's a bad way to live. Does that make sense? Right? If I'm generally a trusting person, I don't think that's a bad thing per se. But if I trust everyone, right, I think these are two separate things, right? Being a trusting person and trusting everyone. Why is it dangerous to trust everyone? I'm sorry? Right, you could be disappointed for sure. Right, not everybody has my best interest at heart. There are all kinds of people out there, and I will say something in the sense that, how many of us lock our front doors? Probably all of us, right? How many of us lock our cars? Do we do it because we distrust society? It's not, maybe some people. I do it not because I distrust anyone. I don't know them, right? I don't know people. It's the same reason, like, if I want to protect a $100 bill, then I'm like, okay, hey, let me put it on the sidewalk for safety. Why don't we do that? How come we don't keep our valuables out in public? So, like I said, because we don't know them, right? It's not about every single person is distrustworthy.
Would that mean that by default, you still would be, if someone the default over trust?
The default should be, okay, it should be, I would say, to be cautious. Meaning that when I go and I meet someone for the first time, I don't make a judgment call. Right? It's like this person in front of me is neutral. Now, what do I do? What should I do at that point?
Assume the best?
I assume the best. And how do I assume the best? If I don't see anything negative from this person, what is the next step now? No, we're not there yet. I don't know this person well enough.
Start establishing trust?
Okay, maybe establish trust. How do you do that? By giving that person an opportunity, right? Giving people a chance. Now, I think there are some people who are able to scale into relationships, right? It's like, okay, hey, this person, hey, can I borrow $100? It's like, sorry, I can let you borrow 5. Yeah? And why do I do that? It's like, well, I don't really know you well enough to give you the full amount, but I'm willing to let you borrow this 5 because I know it's not high stakes for me. And if that person returns that $5 back, next time he asks for money, I might be willing to give him 20, right? Or are there some people who's like, okay, hey, can I borrow $100? And are there some people who are like, yeah, here you go? Yes? I think that can be a bit worrisome in that it's very easy for people to take advantage of you. And this is what we actually call naivety, right? Is it bad? Right? Like I don't think it's a healthy characteristic. I don't think it's a good characteristic. It's very easy for such people to overinvest in relationships too, right? Like when they give too much too soon. And why is that a problem? Did that person ask for that extent of the relationship? Usually no, right? People, it's like, yo, bro, I just met you. Like, it's like going and meeting someone. It's like, hi, hey, what's your name? It's like, yeah, my name's Ahmed, blah, blah, blah. Man, you're my new best friend. All of a sudden, the guy's like, whoa, 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 slow down. Like, I don't know you like that, man. And because building relationships takes time, right? And how do you build those relationships? Umar radiallahu anh, he mentions 2 very easy ways of figuring out where someone stands. What are those 2 ways? Traveling with them, good. And business, right? These are the 2 things. Why is that? Why is it traveling and business? Why are these 2 very easy ways to gauge a person?
Because when you travel or business, sometimes like someone's like quirks, I guess, can come out.
Sure. Why? Why do they come out in those situations?
Sensitive.
Maybe.
People when travel get irritated.
Sure. Why? What's going on? Okay, there's a level of uncertainty for sure, but there's pressure, right? So you're actually seeing how someone reacts in high pressure situations. And how many of you, maybe you know someone very casually, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you're not friends, maybe you're like, acquaintances, and then you travel with them, and you're like, yeah, I never want to go anywhere with that person again. It doesn't mean that he's a bad person, right? It's just like, okay, hey, when it comes time for high stress situations, the person I'm not going to rely on is him. And I think that's important because it's under stress where a real person comes out. We can only hide so much, right? If a person puts on a facade, it's very easy to hide certain things, but it's under high stress situations that the reality of that individual actually comes out. So I think it's very important. We give people chances. We scale into relationships, right? Because when we scale into a relationship, it becomes very easy to see how quickly the other person is moving too, right? So if I'm moving like this and this person is moving like that, right? There's going to come a meeting point, and we can kind of figure out, all right, where this person stands or where I stand. But if I move too quickly, I'm not being fair, right? I can't just throw out my heart at someone, right? That's not being fair to that person because that's not what that person asked for. They might not be ready to accept it. Now, is there a point where that becomes okay? Where, I'm at a point now where I want to commit to a friendship, maybe to a marriage proposal, maybe to a business, At what point can I get there? Or here, let me put it another way. Is there a point where I do that and the other person goes, whoa, I wasn't ready for that? Is there a point where it becomes okay now for me to be like, okay, hey, I'm fully committed? We already decided like the first meeting is not it, right? Okay, so when? When is it okay? I'll give you an example. So if you have a man proposing and he's talking to a woman and he gets to a point where he's like, hey, listen, I'm ready to commit. Can she, at what point is that okay? And is there a point where she can be like, oh, I didn't ask for that? How do you determine that? What does that look like? And I understand relationships are very fluid, right? So keeping that in mind.
Maybe once you find alignment on likes, dislikes, goals, values,
Okay.
morals.
So once you get the base information that you're looking for, and you made very clear, is that fair? Right? So it's like, okay, hey, listen, I'm looking for these 10 values. I'm looking for these 20 values. And the moment that you have all the information you need, you are more than welcome now to say, hey, listen, I have enough information that I need, and I'm ready to take this the next step forward. Now, does she have to reciprocate in the same way? No. But she has no right to say what? Well, this isn't. I didn't ask for this. It's like, bro, why were you stringing me along? What do you think we've been doing this whole time? Yes. Yes.
So if that means that person, if the mutakabbir, that means Allah Allah says Allah is his name.
Allah is al-mutakabbir. Yes.
So that means this person is not making harmful
Mm-hmm.
human to Allah. Like he's making,
He's challenging Allah. Yes. That's exactly what it is. But and the reason it's important to scale into these relationships because it is a sign of humility, right? Like moving too quickly is assuming that that person has to move at the pace that I dictated for them, versus me sharing what it is. And why is it scary to share for me to say? For example, if I get to a point where I'm like, hey, listen, I'm ready and I'm committed, why is that a scary thing to say for many people? Because you don't know how the other person is going to respond. And we fear what? We fear rejection. So, we'll come back inshallah after Salah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم وقال المسيح قل فمن يملك لكم من الله شيئا إن أراد أن يهلك المسيح ابن مريم وأمه ومن في الأرض جميعا ولله ملك السماوات والأرض وما بينهما يخلق ما يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير وقالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه قل فلم يعذبكم بذنوبكم بل أنتم بشر ممن خلق يغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء ولله ملك السماوات والأرض وما بينهما وإليه المصير يا أهل الكتاب قد جاءكم رسولنا يبين لكم على فترة من الرسل أن تقولوا ما جاءنا من بشير ولا نذير فقد جاءكم بشير ونذير والله على كل شيء قدير وإذ قال موسى لقومه يا قوم اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جعل فيكم أنبياء وجعلكم ملوكا وآتاكم ما لم يؤت أحدا من العالمين يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر أحدا من العالمين يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون قال رجلان من الذين يخافون أنعم الله عليهم ادخلوا عليهم الباب فإذا دخلتموه فإنكم غالبون وعلى الله فتوكلوا إن كنتم مؤمنين الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So I know we have been talking about different types of arrogance, and we talked about like the one concerning and around expectations. Imam Ghazali, he's talking about that level of arrogance when you actually start belittling and looking down on others. And some of you might be like, okay, well, what does that have to do with expectations? Because it's actually the reverse. You're not. It is a way of looking down on others because you're actually raising your own self and raising your own status. And when we had talked about the conditions of arrogance, we had said that the moment that you start recognizing that there are ranks amongst people, right? Like the moment you create that chasm and that gap, that's a sign that I've fallen into arrogance. And even though that perspective might be a little bit different, and this one seems like the one that we're more familiar with, I think it's the subtle one that will lead to this greater type of arrogance that we really need to be aware of when we're thinking of our relationship with others. Because one of the conditions of arrogance was how we view and how we interact and how we deal with others. And that's something that's really important to keep in mind so that we don't slip into these greater types of arrogance. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So the first aspect he mentions here is that, and this is something that we had mentioned and talked about last time, is that when you think of these characteristics, majesty, grandeur, might, supremacy, this is what al-mutakabbir is, right? So this is what we're talking about when we deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is deserving of all of these characteristics. We are deserving of none of them. And that's why this is so important. When we talk about arrogance, it's also important to keep in mind, like when we have a lot of these discussions, it's opposite, which is humility. Because it is only through humility that we're going to be able to recognize a lot of these shortcomings and these flaws that we have in our own character. So he says, one of our arguments that he brings is like, okay, well, you as a human being, you're essentially weak, right? It's so easy for us to fall into temptation. It's so easy for us to make mistakes. It's so easy for us to hurt others. What gives you the right to even think that you're better than anyone else? What gives you the right to think that you are superior? What gives you the right to think that you are majestic? Right? None of these things are appropriate for a being that is essentially so weak. It is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we derive strength, and it's only from Him that we're able to be motivated for the things that we do. And he says that the one who does these things, like you're essentially challenging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who am I, like, you know what I mean, like this insignificant human being to even bring myself to challenge my Lord. He also talks about like, okay, it's like an impetulant child, right? You know, that child that is deserving, like I want. This is exactly the analogy that Imam Ghazali is bringing for the one that is arrogant. It's like, well, you're not deserving of any of these things. Like you think that you're just going to put yourself on a throne and put a crown on your head. That doesn't make you a king. Because essentially you've done nothing to deserve any of what it is that you claim that you're deserving of. He also talks about the Hadith Qudsi where the Prophet ﷺ, he said about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grandeur is my robe and majesty is my garment. Whoever contends with me in them, I will crush them. These attributes are exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there are some attributes that, you know, it's important for us to share in that attribute, and it's important for us to manifest those attributes. What are some attributes that come to mind when we talk about them? Right, just al-adl, right, being just. That's something that we should and we have to manifest in our lives. What else? Ar-Rahman, like being merciful toward ourselves and being merciful toward others. Al-Wudud, like, you know, being giving. Ar-Rahim, you know, making sure that we're being merciful with everyone and all the people who are around us. So there are characteristics that we definitely can manifest in our lives. But when it comes to the sifat al-jabariya, right, like when we talk about those characteristics that are grand, those characteristics that are majestic, those characteristics that are very high and He Azza wa Jalla is alone deserving of, then we should have no share in any of them. He says that not only does this apply to yourself, it's like it even applies when you deal with others. So if I'm dealing with a person in a bad way, in a negative way, and I'm putting them down and I'm belittling them, well that being is a slave of Allah, right? All of us are Allah's property. Like when we call ourselves ibadullah, when we call ourselves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's slaves and His servants, okay, we're His property. In the moment that we start damaging or hurting or putting down, what am I essentially doing? I'm damaging Allah's property, right? And I have no right to do that. I have no right to put someone down. I have no right to ridicule someone. I have no right to belittle anyone. Someone have a question? No. And this extends not only to us as human beings, it actually gives us insight on how we should treat the world around us. Right? I shouldn't be abusive of the world around us. Like, even if you think about like trees, if you think about animals, fish, plants, this is all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And I shouldn't abuse any of those things. Even things that, we've maybe created with our own hands, right? Like, we have electronics devices, and we have phones, and we have cars, and we have homes. Even those things, that's an amana. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted us with those assets, and important that we treat those assets well. And he's saying that arrogance there's a spectrum. So like, the most arrogant, you have like Shaitan. The most arrogant, you have Fir'aun. The most arrogant, you have Nimrod, right? And then there are lesser types of arrogance that I think are a lot easier for many of us to fall into. And that's essentially how we deal, how we interact, and how we place people. And sometimes it can become very natural and very second nature of how we place the people around us. But I think it's better for us to place the relationship and not place the person. Does that make sense? Right. So what does it mean to place the relationship? It's like, okay, this person is a close friend. This person is an acquaintance. This is someone I actually want to stay away from. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to, just because we're a brotherhood, right, as believers, it doesn't mean I need to keep everybody close. And I think that's the mistake that sometimes we fall into. I've had a number of people who come and tell me like, oh, well, it's a family member, and it's like this, and it's like that. And I'm like, nobody's asking you to be that person's best friend, right? That's not the goal. That's not the idea. We have to learn how to draw boundaries and create distance with those relationships that are harmful to us. I remember I had a young woman, and she was telling me like about her relationship with her father, and she was like, the Prophet ﷺ said that you can't abandon it, and you have to maintain ties, and blah, blah. I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does it mean to maintain ties? I was like, okay, if you have someone who calls their parents every week, I was like, what do you think about that? She was like, yeah. I was like, okay, every 2 weeks, every month. It's important to understand like what those boundaries look like. And I was like, man, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this. I was like, okay, hey, listen, if you called every couple hours, would that make them any happier? Like, no, not really. I was like, okay, if you called once a day, would that make them any happier? No. If you called once a week, if you called once a month. I was like, okay, so what do you do in a situation, regardless of my contribution, that person is going to be upset? What do you guys think? It doesn't matter what I do, this person is going to be upset with me. It could be a mother, a father, a friend, whatever. Okay, so how do I define what is my best? What do I feel comfortable with? Because if there's going to be a relationship where it doesn't matter what I contribute, this person is going to be unhappy, I might as well do what? Right? I might not less, but I should do the amount that makes me happy. And what does that mean? It's like, okay, I'm comfortable in standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and telling Allah that, hey, yeah, Allah, I could only handle 1 week of conversation with this person, or I can only handle 3 days of conversation with this person. If I did any more than that, I start getting anxiety, I start getting frustrated, and the communication becomes so much that it actually starts becoming toxic. So I think understanding on how to draw those boundaries and how to maintain them is something that's really important, because again, it's not a judgment of the person, it's a judgment of the relationship, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Even if it's like a marital relationship, even if it's a parental relationship, even if it's a sibling relationship, there's nothing ever wrong with judging relationships. Because a relationship could be good, it could be bad, it could be between the two, right? There's going to be a spectrum between them. But when we judge other people, this is where it becomes a problem and issue. It's like, well, so-and-so is abusive, and so-and-so is like this. And there's been a number of cases like that. I've had marital cases where it's like, man, he's so abusive to me, and he hurts me, and he does this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, what do you want to do with the kids? He's actually a great father. No, and it happens, right? Like, these are real situations where it's like, okay, yeah, he was a terrible husband, but he was a great father. Right? He was a great son. He might be a great coworker, right? And it's important that us as individuals, like, we're so many parts, right? Like, as people, we're so many parts. Like, okay, I might be good at 6 types of relationships, but I might not be good at 2 types, right? So what should I do? Like, I should work on these 2 types of relationships and to see how I get them better, or I avoid them, right? Until I get to a point where I can develop some kind of equilibrium there. And not just that, a lot of the reason I'm mentioning this, it becomes really easy to judge people and kind of paint one brushstroke across them, right? It's like, oh, he's a bad person or she's a bad person. It's like, it's much easier to say like, well, actually, no, she's a bad mother, right? It's a lot easier because she might be good at other parts of her life. And we don't know where people stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We just don't know. It's like, yeah, oh man, so-and-so, like he doesn't pray and he does this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, he's also built like 50 masajid. You know what I mean? Like, wallahi, we don't know. Wallahi. Like, we just don't know. And again, I'm not saying this because, oh, this is a really good example. This is someone we should follow. And like, no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying we just don't know. Like, we just don't know. We don't know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept from any of us. So making judgments on people, all we're doing is hurting our own hearts. That's all we're doing. We're not benefiting anyone. We're not benefiting ourselves. We're not benefiting that person. And many times, that person I'm talking about, they usually have no idea I'm talking about them, right? So they're just living rent-free in my head, and I'm consuming myself with that person. That person could care less. Many times that person doesn't even know I exist. So it's important for us to understand who we are. It's important for us to understand our relationships, and it's important for us to understand how to work on them and how to gauge them. And don't make it about people, and don't make it about individuals. Arrogance also leads to opposing commands. If I think the other person is evil, I'm going to do whatever I can to hurt that person, right? Because I've already put it in my mind and I've put it in my heart that this person is less than me. And what happens is the moment I make somebody lesser, it justifies anything and everything I do to that person. And what does that lead to? That leads to genocide. It leads to murder. It leads to you know what I mean? And that, I understand like that's a very extreme end example, but that's exactly what it is. What allows me to kill someone else? Like, what actually allows murder? It's because I view the person as less. Like, yes, it happens accidentally, like, right, that's completely understandable. But the moment I have patched judgment, like, I see this person as less. And this person is deserving of it. Again, like arrogance, man, it just sneaks in to our hearts in different ways and different forms. May Allah protect us. So over here, he says that arrogance actually prevents two things. It prevents us from following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands, and it stops us from accepting the truth, right? Because we're so obsessed and we're so fixated on being right. And it doesn't matter what's going on, like it is actually blinders that we're putting on our eyes when we become arrogant and when we fall into it. So then he also talks about, he's like, okay, well, what about debating? Right, so if I'm debating someone, can it lead to this arrogance? Have you guys ever seen a debate? It's not my favorite format of engagement, but what do you think? Is it good or is it bad? Yes.
I do a lot of YouTube videos about Muslims debating Christians.
Sure. Yeah, and Muslims debating each other. So what do you guys think? Good, bad, neutral? Depends.
It can start off as something good, but very quickly you can be like, my truth is my truth no matter what happens, and it can just, start
Sure.
posing.
So, what does it become? Instead of it becoming the truth, right? It's about what I believe. Like, it's like, okay, no, I need to give victory on what it is that I believe and what I stand on. All right, so it very quickly can lead to this, very quickly. Is it always bad? No, but I think there's a level of clarity and sincerity that's required in those spaces, so that a person, because that desire to win, right? Like, so like I said, you know, when it comes to like debate, it's like an art, right? It's like an art where you're intellectually sparring with the person in front of you, and in the spar you want to what? You want to win. If the goal of the debate is truth, I think that's wonderful, right? Like, I think that's excellent. I think that's ideally on how it should be, because why are we engaging, right? What is the purpose of this intellectual sparring? It's so that we can arrive at the truth. But if that's not my goal, if my goal is to win, right, which many times the fight is, then I've definitely fallen into arrogance. So over here, Imam Ghazali, he said that this is the behavior of the disbelievers. And he says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَا تُسْمَعُوا لِهَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَالْغَوْا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْلِمُونَ. What is it? Tea? No sugar? Jaziti khair. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَغْلِبُونَ. And those who disbelieve say, we do not listen to this Qur'an and speak nonsense during it, that you may overcome. Meaning that, okay, hey, listen, the way we're going to engage with this Qur'an is to what? We're not going to listen to it. Why is that? How come? Huh?
They know that's the truth.
Right, because maybe they know or maybe they don't know, right? So these people, they haven't engaged with the Quran directly. And they decide, you know what, the best strategy is to what? Is just to avoid it and to not listen to it. Why is that dangerous? Or why is that arrogance?
You're knowingly rejecting potential truth.
And that's exactly what it is. Right, okay. Even if there is a possibility of truth, I'm what? I'm rejecting it. I'm not going to engage.
How do you defer?
No, that's the question. So how do I know if I'm being arrogant? What if I don't want to listen? What if I have a Christian missionary and he's like, I want to tell you about Christianity? They do that, right?
But that's their truth, right?
That's their truth.
Like I went to college and I had like
Uh-huh.
a bunch of family.
Sure,
They're very devout Christians.
sure.
And I knew genuinely they loved me so much. They kept
Mhm.
saying they want me to find Jesus.
Yeah.
Like they genuinely wanted
You-
me to find
you-
Jesus so that
you
I could have heaven.
Should have been like I did.
I did that, but not in the way that they believe.
No, not in the way they believe. Yeah, sure.
They very strongly believe
Sure.
that the way to go to heaven is
So I mean, it's a valid question. Okay, how do I tell the difference? How do I tell the difference between me stopping to seek the truth, right, which is arrogance, and me being dismissive of an idea because I know it's not true? Okay, intention is a very important part of it. No, not just that. In general, sometimes we don't like to admit it. Do I know when I'm being arrogant? Right, I usually don't. I usually recognize it. It's like the moment I start like, oh, this peon, like, you know, why is he even addressing me? Right? there's a recognition that's there, right? Like, and we all have it in our hearts. But when I would say one other easy way of doing it is like, okay, after finding Islam, is there anything else that's worth engaging? If we're being honest, not really. Like after you find Islam, it's like, okay, no, everything else is untrue. So then where can it appear? Now we're saying, no, I don't need to engage people who are debating about atheism. I don't need to engage with people who are debating about other religions. I don't need to engage any of that stuff. So now we're saying, okay, within Islam, is there room now for these discussions or no? Yes, there is. I remember, and you know what, I'll probably close with this, and we'll come back, we'll continue from next week, inshallah. I had a couple young women, they came into my office, and they said to me, they're like, why don't you teach Aqidah? So I was like, I have no problem. I'm happy to teach it. I will not teach anything by Muhammad ibn Wahhab. And they were like, they kind of froze, and they're like, whoa, what? You know, and immediately they started debating, and I said to them, listen, I have no problem sitting down and having a discussion about him, his books, his philosophy, etc. I have no issue with that. The only question I have for you, I said, to get to this point where you believe that this is right? Like we all go through journeys. I said, you believe that this is right, correct? They're like, yes. I said, how did you get to that point? They said, well, we started asking questions and we started searching, we started doing this. I was like, great. I said, and I feel that's the difference between you and me. They were like, what? I said, you stopped asking questions and I kept asking. And that's what we should be as Muslims. We should have no shyness in asking. We should have no shyness in seeking. We should have no shyness in challenging many of the things that maybe we hold on to, not realizing, man, this is coming from culture. This is coming from a skewed viewpoint. This is something maybe I inherited. But that is the only way that we can grow in our iman, is through asking questions. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq. Inshallah, I'll see all of you next week. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqih nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Jazakumullah khair.